the inquiry that I've sort of set up here was, first of all, is that our goal? Is our goal perfection? Is that really what we are all wanting? And, it's something that's really worth thinking about. Because, I mean, how close to perfect are you right now?
Nearly.
Grace. Not in my eyes.
It's interesting, isn't it? And it's interesting to think about what that question does to us as well, by the way. And is the personal development movement making a really positive contribution to the world today? And to the way that people are and to people's thinking today? And what's the difference between self-improvement and self-acceptance? Now, those are just labels I've put on things that I've been thinking about. I'll explain them in a minute, but I have to tell you they are just labels. So just so I could have something at the top of the flip chart and put a whole load of things under there. So you might not like those titles, but that's fine. And really to think about then, what does that have, what impact does that have on coaching? And the things that kind of inspired that prompted this inquiry in me was first, was my own experience of personal development. So Stuart said I'd been in this a long time. I realised that next year, you know how these celebrities, you have these great sort of things in the paper, don't you, that so-and-so's celebrated so many years in the entertainment business. I realised that next year I have been 40 years in learning and development. And, I'm going to clap myself anyway, because I think it's wonderful. But, and a lot of that time I've given myself a real hard time. For a lot of those years I beat myself up horribly in order to achieve something. And I can only describe it as perfection. And it really got me thinking about, whether our learning and whether our development really needs to be that painful. And do we need to do that sort of stuff to ourselves? Because, what would happen with me for a lot of years was that, I would sort of do some comparison. Now, whether that's consciously or not, because that's how we do this whole thing about perfection. We do the whole comparison bit, and I would be comparing, I don't know, sometimes I have no idea what I was comparing myself against, but I came out the loser. And then I would feel bad about it. So I'd go off and do something about it, go on a course, have some coaching, or I'd do something like that. So I'd feel better about that bit, then it'd come to the next one, and the whole process would start all over again. So my inquiry really was, from my own experience, was, does it need to be that painful? Then I found this interesting thing kept on coming out of my mouth when I was training people or coaching and talking to people. And, and it would be this whole thing, well, nobody's perfect. So I started to think, well, is that really true? Do I really want to believe that? And to kind of think about, whether that would be a great thing to challenge. And then I started out in the 60s, which was the rise of systematic training and development. So we had wonderful things in organisations called training needs analysis. And I think they still go on. And we sit down with people and we tell them what their strengths and their weaknesses are. And then we tell them what they need to do about it. So, and I don't know about you, but in those experiences, most people don't listen to the great things that they do. They just listen to the things that people call weaknesses, and then they feel bad about themselves, and so the whole. Then I think about when I work with a lot of organisations, and I talk to them about the outcomes that they want from their coaching, and they are astonishing. Some of the things that organisations ask me as outcomes from things that they do. The number of times that they ask me to help someone change how somebody else thinks about them. And that's an outcome. That's an outcome. and how someone else's idea of perfection is then piled onto someone else. So it's interesting to think about that. The inquiry also has come to me from lots of coaching with other people. And the other thing that has come to me about is how we're, in the Western sort of culture, we are finding more and more labels for things that are wrong with us. We have syndromes for everything. You know, we have labels, and the thing about labels is, in NLP, I said I wasn't going to do it, well, just one bit. In NLP, we have a thing called normalizations. That's where we turn a process into a thing. Right? So when we label something, we turn it into something really solid, and it's there, and it's kind of like that's how we get stuck, because we've made it into something, where actually it's a process. So here's an interesting thing that someone sent me. This is Richard Bentle. He's a clinical psychologist at Liverpool University, and he wrote an article. It's a proposal to classify happiness as a psychiatric disorder for the Journal of Medical Ethics in 1992. And the author's abstract reads as follows. It is proposed that happiness be classified as a psychiatric disorder and be included in further editions of the major diagnostic manuals under the new name Major Affective Disorder Pleasant Time. In a review of the relevant literature, it is shown that happiness is statistically abnormal, consists of a discrete cluster of symptoms, is associated with a range of cognitive abnormalities, and probably reflects the abnormal functioning of the central nervous system. One possible objection to this proposal remains that happiness is not negatively valued. However, this objection is dismissed as scientifically irrelevant. I mean, and it just gets you to think about, you know, how we are thinking about ourselves and how we are labelling ourselves, and whether that is useful for us. The other one that really got me to think about this is about the power of coaching. You know, us as coaches here, we have a really powerful tool that can make a huge difference in the world. And you know, I think about that and about how we are doing what we do, and what changes that we can make. And just to think even about critical mass, you know, I work with an organisation where I've trained 50 of their coaches. And even if none of them ever do any coaching, the difference that has made in that organisation, just to have 50 people in it that think as coaches do, just makes a huge difference. And so the way that we do our work, you know, can have a huge impact. And I think we need to really remember that. And so then the last question really was, you know, does learning and change have to be painful? That's really where my inquiry has come from. And so I'm going to go through these quite quickly because we haven't got a lot of time. But I just want to, under self-development for me comes the goal is perfection. You know, somehow we have to be whatever, however we label it, or whoever labels it for us. That's perfection. We set ourselves smart goals. And very often these are goals which really are unsustainable. So, you know, when you think about, I talking to someone about weight loss the other day, and her goal was that she wanted to be a certain weight in time for her sister's wedding. So she went to Weight Watchers, lost lots of weight, you know, got to the weight that she wanted to, went to her sister's wedding, you know what happened. So it's interesting about those goals. You know, we do, organisations and people is all about measurements and comparisons. It's all about them, when we feel bad about not meeting up to these comparisons, we then use the past and our stories from the past to think of, you know, for blame and excuses, and really in order to make ourselves not feel so bad. And so it's all about the past becoming the future. We believe our thoughts are true. You know, if we have a thought, it has to be true. We make decisions based on our thoughts solely. You know, that we think that's, for some people they think that change is the exception, and that we absolutely need to have certainty in our lives in order for us to be able to progress and move forward. And I've talked about normalizations, and it kind of leads to what I call intellectual learning. And to have the thing of enduring goals. So enduring goals are goals which we can do every day. So with the eating one, you know, I got the lady to think about a healthy eating. She can work towards that, inquire about that, experiment about that every day. She can achieve something every day. Those of you that know Robert Holden, I mean, his is about being a loving presence in the world. See, when you have a goal like that, you can work towards that every day. You can do a little bit every day towards that and feel good about that. It is about constant inquiry. You know, it comes down to this. We think we're static, but we're not. We're changing all the time. Every single second, every minute. I mean, you're very different now from how you were when you walked in the room. You're different from how when you came here. We're constantly changing our bodies, our thoughts, our emotions, and our states. And, you know, so it is just about, we are changing all the time, and it's just about inquiring. About experimenting. You know, every day is just an experiment. And it is about being in the now. You know, how can we help ourselves and our clients be present? How can we think about thoughts as just being creative options? We don't have to believe they're true. You know, we have these thoughts and we can just take them as creative options. If they seem to be okay for us, we can go with them, and if they're not, that's fine. And the real thing that I think is important in our coaching is to help people go back to really listening, because our bodies tell us everything we ever need to know. And, you know, we have in our bodies the signals, and we have an inner wisdom inside us, and when we can get still in order to do that, that's when we can really access learning. And the other thing is, I've already talked about, you know, that we're a process. We're not static, we're not still, we're a complete process. And I think from that place, that we can just have learning as a very natural thing that's happening every second, every minute, however you like to think about it. And it's just continuing. And the inquiry just keeps on going. So, you know, that's really my thoughts about that, and my particular inquiry that I wanted to share with you.